call this meeting to order. We have two items in the agenda today. The first one will be voluntary separation ordinance, and I welcome Ellen Bradley Mark. I don't think I didn't pronounce your name correctly, Ellen. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Council President Perez, council members, and guests. My name is Ellen Bradley Mock. I'm the Human Resources and Risk Management Administrator for the city. This evening, I will be providing information on the city's proposed voluntary separation program. In her budget presentation 2 weeks ago, Jan Hahn mentioned this program as one of many cost-saving measures the city is proposing to address the projected budget shortfall as a result of the impacts of COVID-19. Tonight, I will be providing additional information. And to do that, I will share my screen. All right, can you see my screen? Yeah. Wonderful. All right. As I mentioned, this is the proposed voluntary separation incentive program. There will be 5 areas I'll be covering in my short 10-minute presentation: the purpose and goal of the program overview, eligibility and timeline, the continuity of operations, and projected savings. So the purpose and goal of the voluntary separation program is to reduce salary expenditures to address the projected budget shortfall, while maintaining continuity of city operations and minimizing the impact to employees. The way that this program will work is that it will provide funds equal to the cost of continuing an individual's current health insurance under COBRA for 18 months. This is as an incentive to voluntarily separate from employment. The funds will be placed in a VEBA account for the individual to avoid employee and employer taxes associated with the benefit. Employees could elect to use the funds to pay for the city's plan under COBRA, or use the funds for an alternative insurance plan, or further to cover out-of-pocket medical expenses. VEBA stands for Voluntary Employee Benefit Association. It's a form of a trust. Employees who are eligible include regular, full, and part-time employees who have worked for the city for at least 2 years. Applications may be denied, though, based on an inability to maintain critical operation while with other existing staff. The timeline includes that it will be rolled out immediately upon council approval. Unions are prepared to have this offered to their members. We have talked with them a bit about it. The applications will be due from employees on July 8th, so it is about a 4-week turnaround, and separations will be effective July 31st through August 31st. Continuity of operations. Departments may need to reorganize in order to accomplish the work with lower level staffing. Reduced staffing may result in a reduction in services or a delay of work where feasible. In order to attain salary savings, the position will need to be held vacant. Where an internal promotion is necessary to achieve the work, the position of the promoted individual will be held vacant to attain the same savings as though the vacated position were held. Although it's hard to project because we do not know how many people will participate, the net salary savings of the incentive will vary based on the individual salary and insurance enrollment. The average time required to hold a position vacant to cover just the COBRA costs is approximately 3 months. The average savings when a position is held vacant for 6 months is approximately $34,000. And that's on an average of all employees who are eligible. So that's the elements of the program. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you very much for your presentation. Council members, do you have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, this is Randy.
Councilmember Corman.
Yes, so will they be allowed to continue coverage for their families as well as part of this program?
Yes, Councilmember Corman. They will be receiving the same level of coverage that they enjoy today.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Corman. If council members, if you have another question, please raise your voice because I cannot see if you're raising your hand. Councilmember O'Halloran.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm curious, does accepting a voluntary separation in this case in any way hinder their ability to be rehired at some future date by us?
Thank you, Councilmember O'Halloran. No, it does not hinder them from being rehired. However, if they come back to the city and are hired in less than 18 months from their separation date, there will be a prorated amount of money that they will be repaying to the city to recover the cost of the COBRA.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone has more questions? Hear none. Ellen, thank you very much to you and your team. I know that how hard you have worked, to put all these materials together, and as well as keep having everybody to be able to telecommute. I know that has been a lot of hard work from your team, so we really appreciate it.
Thank you. I will pass along your appreciation, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you. So we will move on with our second item on the agenda, and it's the SKHHP Work Program and Budget. We have Mark Santos Johnson, who will introduce Angela Sanfilippo. Sorry.
Thank you. Council President Perez, members of the council, we're pleased tonight to be able to come to you to share information regarding SKIP, the South King Housing and Homeless Partners Group. For those of you who were here last year, will recall that the city entered into an interlocal agreement with other cities from South King County and King County government to form SKIP. And we're very pleased that Angela Sanfilippo was hired as the executive manager for SKIP. She started the first of the year, and she has joined us tonight to give you an update on SKIP efforts and to talk about the 2020 and 21 work plan and answer your questions. So, Angela, thank you for your presentation tonight.
Thank you. 1 second while I share my screen here with you. Let's see. I have to put it in slideshow mode, I think, before, because then I can't get to it. Let's see. Can you all see that? Okay, great. Making sure that we're all together. All right. Thank you so much, Mark, for the great introduction. Thank you all for having me. Renton City Council, it's a pleasure to be here. As Mark said, I started in January and have had the opportunity to meet with individually with all of the board members as well as some of the staff with the jurisdictions, but this is the first opportunity to meet and come to you as a city council. So I wanted to provide just a little bit of a brief update on the work that SKIP did in 2019, as well as discuss some of the actions that SKIP is focusing on in the work plan for 2020 and 2021, and then provide an overview of proposed contributions for the budget in future years, 2021 and 2022. In your packet, you will find all of the information that I'm going over and summarizing. So I included an end of the year report for 2019, as well as a draft of the SKIP work plan. So hopefully I don't get too repetitive, but I wanted to make sure you had all the information in front of you that I'll be going over tonight as well. So with that, a little bit of context on SKIP. As probably some of you are very aware, SKIP is the culmination of many years of effort of South King County cities, the King County, as well as housing advocacy groups and elected officials to increase the available options for affordable housing in the community and preserve existing affordable housing stock. Some of the key priorities that will help SKIP to achieve this goal is to provide a unified voice for South King County jurisdictions, developing shared solutions for what are really regional housing needs across the area, keeping our neighbors in the region and in their homes, and serving some of the most vulnerable community members in the area. So this is a summary of that 2019 end of the year report, and this just includes some of the major milestones of the first year of SCIP. As Mark said, the interlocal agreement was signed in January. Well, it became effective in January 2019, but it really took several months into 2019 for each of the 10 jurisdictions to approve and adopt the interlocal agreement. About midway through the year, the city of Auburn took on administrative duties, filling the important role as the administering agency for SCIP, and took on some of the ensuing hiring process, budget development, and other administrative related tasks. In July, the SCIP Executive Board, made up of representatives of each of the 10 jurisdictions that make up the SCIP partners, agreed on action items that would inform SCIP's first work plan that would go into development when staff was hired. And I'll go into a little bit more detail in that work plan in a minute. In October of 2019, 6 of the 9 SCIP partner cities came together to jointly work on a sub-regional housing needs and policy assessment. And SCIP was able to become the fiscal agent as an already existing entity through that interlocal agreement, which helped to solidify that work and make sure that it moved forward. Throughout the second half of 2019, SCIP partners advocated with their jurisdictions to enable legislation to accept sales tax credit for affordable housing, as passed by the state legislature in 2019 under House Bill 1406. And in November, the SCIP Executive Board passed a resolution that encouraged the partners to pool these funds to help establish a regional housing capital fund for South King County. And then towards the end of the year, SCIP completed the hiring process and was able to hire the executive manager. As Mark said, I started in January of 2020 and came on board just the very beginning of the year. You'll see that monthly SCIP Executive Board meetings and monthly SCIP staff work group meetings were held throughout 2019. And that coordination and collaboration of those 2 regular monthly meetings really helped to achieve all of these milestones, were crucial to getting these things in place. The next slide, this is a little bit of a basic overview of the work plan and budget adoption process. So we are working on a work plan for 2020 and 2021, but the budget is actually 2021 and 2022. The 2020 budget was passed last year as part of the interlocal agreement. So currently I'm in the process of presenting and reviewing the work plan with SCIP partners before the SCIP Executive Board formally adopts both the work plan and the budget in the summer, which will be followed by individual jurisdiction adoption in late summer or early fall. This is as required by the interlocal agreement. The work plan itself is split into 3 primary areas. The first being governance and administration, and it covers program-wide management activities, some of the startup procedures, budget and work plan development, as well as establishing an advisory committee to the executive board that will help inform future board decisions. Some of the main outcomes are creating a collaborative entity with clear measures of progress and success that we're able to draw from for future planning efforts to make sure that we're meeting the goals and establishing progress moving forward. Secondly, equitable outcomes across the region, and this really ties back to the advisory committee and making sure that we bring the necessary voices into the decision-making process. The second area of work is around policy and planning. This includes advocating for a housing capital fund, which I talked a little bit about in terms of pooling of the House Bill 1406 funds. developing an administrative program for those funds, and inventorying subsidized and naturally occurring affordable housing that's vulnerable to market pressures that will help to prioritize any of the funds or preservation efforts in South King County. This also includes collaborating on policies and programs that help to protect housing stock, provide housing security, and access to affordable housing in the region. Some of the outcomes of this area of work are increased resources that are dedicated to affordable housing in South King County. So this not only includes advocating for that housing capital fund, but working on using that capital fund to leverage outside resources for South King County affordable housing as well. An increased number of South King County cities with housing action plans, and new or enhanced legislation that's passed by South King County partners. The third area of work is around outreach and education. This includes representing South King County at local and regional decision-making tables, meetings, and forums, helping to further stakeholder as well as elected officials' understanding of housing options and the range of needs and opportunities in the area. This also includes developing SCIP advocacy priorities for federal and state legislative sessions. And this really addresses identifying that unified voice for South King County and advocating for the unique needs of the area. Some of the outcomes are South King County is heard, considered, and supported by local and regional policymakers. Potential changes in policies, practices, and funding streams that benefit South King County affordable housing programs. And then increased interest in South King County from nonprofit and for-profit developers. As I said, I wanted to provide a budget overview. This is really just an overview of the individual jurisdiction contributions through 2022. So SCIP did have some personnel cost savings in 2019 as well as in 2020. Because as the executive manager, I didn't come on board until January, but was in the budget in 2019. There was considerable cost savings there. And there is a second position budgeted for SCIP, which we have not hired for, which creates some additional cost savings in 2020. This enables SCIP to maintain the current jurisdiction contributions through 2022 while hiring what will be to start a part-time SCIP program coordinator that will help to move the work forward that's identified in that SCIP work plan. So you'll see the individual contributions are based on populations. City of Renton at over 100,000 in populations contribution is $34,000 annually, and we would be maintaining that contribution as our proposed budget through the year 2022. Lastly, I wanted to just summarize a little bit of information that was provided by King County at the Affordable Housing Committee meeting on May 15th. And it was really provided to focus on the Affordable Housing Committee's work, but it is very relevant to South King County and the work that SCIP does as well. I think it's also really important for us to realize that we went into this current COVID-19 crisis already in a housing crisis. 1 out of 3 households in King County was cost burdened before COVID-19 hit. The growth in King County has been greater than housing production since 2011. So in recent years, we've seen an increasing underproduction in housing, and wages in the area have not kept pace with increased housing costs. In addition, more than 100,000 lower income households were paying more than half of their income for housing costs. So typically, households are considered cost burden if they're paying more than 30%. Paying 50% is severely cost burden and greatly impacts the ability to pay for other necessities, including medical costs, transportation, food, school, anything like that. In addition, they're seeing disproportionate impact Again, this is before COVID-19, but renters are twice as likely as homeowners to pay half of their income for housing costs. So renters are just much more likely to be in that severe cost burden category. In addition, people of color are significantly more likely to be cost burdened as well. And the identified need that came out of the Regional Affordable Housing Task Force and led to the creation of that Affordable Housing Committee is a need for 244,000 affordable homes that are needed by 2040 in the King County region. And that is just affordable. And this is, like I said, prior to COVID-19. Some of the likely scenarios that King County provided as a result of this COVID-19 pandemic, and again, these are kind of outlooks as we are in a level of uncertainty right now with everything, but cost burden rises. Housing supply was already low because of that underproduction that I talked about. And so home prices are not likely to go down very much as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. You have this increase in the disproportionate impacts to vulnerable populations. So we already saw some of that disproportionality. This is likely to increase. And then evictions and foreclosures increasing at the end of the moratorium. We did see that extended again by Governor Inslee, but just thinking about what happens when those protections expire. And then one thing I really wanted to focus is thinking about the immediate crisis. The immediate crisis response has the potential to pull attention away from long-term needs. So I've talked a little bit about SCIP in terms of establishing a local funding source as well as policies and programs that would benefit affordable housing in the area. And as you saw, we were already going into this COVID-19 pandemic in a housing crisis. The things that were issues before this pandemic still continue to be, and those long-term policy needs are still there and will need to be addressed. And then lastly, funding sources are uncertain. So as I'm sure you are all aware, looking at revenue shortfalls and budget concerns, also the funding sources for affordable housing are also uncertain as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So with that, I hate to end on kind of a sort of depressing note, but I just wanted to say with the economic impacts and job losses of the coronavirus pandemic, the need for housing for all families is an even more critical issue in the area. The long-term policy changes that I talked about, establishing local funding sources, and the coordination and collaboration that SCIP focuses on are more crucial than ever to help address housing affordability in King County. With that, I have my contact information up there. If you have questions or follow-up after this, I'm happy to address those, but also I think we have plenty of time for questions tonight.
Thank you, Angela. Council members, do you have any question? Councilmember O'Halloran.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you so much for this presentation, Angela. With regard to the King County 244,000 homes needed by 2040, is it our intention that the inventory that's part of our plan is to identify specifically the number of homes needed in the SCIP partnership cities?
So I believe some of that work is actually being done as part of the House Bill 1923 sub-regional housing needs assessment, is looking at the individual needs throughout the region. So we would be looking at what are the housing needs currently based on income to be able to inform that, and then also looking forward with growth projections and what those would be in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody has any more questions or comments? I don't see anybody raising their hand. So Angela, thank you very much for being here with us today. If we have future questions, we will make sure to email you, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, I move that the council recess to an executive session for 20 minutes to discuss matters related to potential litigation pursuant to RCW 423110, subsection 1I. We will not be taking a final action, and the committee of the whole will adjourn when the executive session ends. Do I have a second? Good. Well, I guess I don't need it.